السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام.
أنت عندك إيه؟
Enya mgeni yetu seda,
وأنتي؟
ndio mgeni yetu seda, awasigadde.
sorry والله بعد الصلاة
No,
خير.
no problem. That was start. Say, 31 minutes past 8 o'clock in the United States.
يعني هو
There's a sound voice that was bleeding through. Okay, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. 31 minutes past 8 o'clock in the United Kingdom. That will be 31 minutes past 10 o'clock in East Africa. That includes Uganda. Today, today the government has announced that discussions that have been taking place between traders and the president have managed to achieve something. They have reached a bit of a deal. EFRAIS, that was the subject of contention, has been put on hold while consultations are being carried out. People that were supposed to be charged for failure to pay in time have also been, given a leeway to be able to go and get rid of the situation. But it almost brings to an end nearly 2 weeks of a serious deadlock as traders decided to shut shop in protest or in demonstration over a tax system, tax policy, or tax implementation policy that has left many, sort of in doubt and in angst. As we talk about this, the traders, I think, embarked on a different approach of seeing demonstrations as well in Uganda. Have been demonstrations where people take to the streets and either try to go to parliament or to government offices to express their particular concern. The traders had gone to parliament, submitted their particular case, but then away from that, they chose now to close shop. And that has had a huge impact on business as businesses ended up being closed for nearly, 2 weeks. The week was much more effective and visible, but nearly 2 weeks of a standstill. Of course, some few traders opened up and went in during Eid, sell a little bit of the hijabs and so on. But other than that, there was general solidarity across for the traders, except in Barara, where I heard that shops had actually remained open at large. Could this be a new way of protesting? Because suddenly the government really, it is the first time I've seen the police getting on their pickups, not in riot gear, failing probably to find who to beat up, but rather beginning to plead with traders to open shop. I found that quite telling and quite interesting. But I think it showed a different sort of soft power that can be used to try to bring a government to listen. The president finally yielded, listened to the traders, made best use of the situation, and he comes out now as the savior once more because after meeting and then saying EFRS should stop for a bit, I think it sort of speaks volumes, and most of the traders, as we shall see shortly, relatively many were relieved at least. But I think we need to first of all start by understanding what this FRS is. Is it a new tax? Is it a tax that has been existing? Isma in the studios, please, if your clip is ready, I think we'll be happy. But in the meantime, we are honored to have Honorable Mpunyi Mwada, who is a shadow Minister of Foreign Affairs and an MP. MP for Chandondo East. That would be nice. Yes, I keep wanting to forget that. He's joined us and he's been in Parliament because the story went up to Parliament. Discussions, because most of these taxes are passed by Parliament, and therefore probably that's the best place to sort of look in case we are also trying to find solutions. Imam Kasozi, I've also seen you. We welcome you very much for joining our conversation. I'm sure as a senior citizen also sitting, especially in the line of business as well, and being a local leader as an imam in your community, but also as a businessman, would give us the temperature in terms of how it falls. In fact, let me come to Imam Kasus and then I'll go to Honorable Queen Wada for the legal explanations and what was happening in Parliament. But on the streets and in the suburbs, Imam Kasus, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hello, Imam, are you there? Hello, Imam. You are co-host there. So I think you should be able to unmute yourself easily. Okay, we'll go to Imam. Oh, right, he's there.
Assalamu alaikum
Wa
warahmatullah.
alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Sebo tuyanza Kadeko. I hope you are well. How are you today?
Alhamdulillah, how are you?
Alhamdulillah, we are also okay.
Yes.
Well, what did about painting the picture in terms of the temperature? It's been a few weeks of traders demonstrating, deciding finally to close shop. What sort of impact? How did that play out for you, one in the community there? To see the picture.
Simanyi kaka. Basically, mwebale nnyo ssebo, I had just also mbadde nzeeko obuzimpulirizeemu naye
Netukwatirayo.
naturally nga a person interested in business and doing some sort of business, telling many of other activities also that we do depending on your businessman.
Yes.
Nga bw'obeera community leader ate nga tulina very many drives ze tutambuza zonna zinoonya ssente ate ssente zirina kuva mu basuubuzi oba mu bantu abakola kubanga oli bw'akola then abeera n'abiita esasula omukozi n'omukozi kuze bamusasudde n'ajjako ako akatono n'akakola ki n'akawaayo. It is a very big challenging situation. Ekyokubiri mbaddewoko at least for the last maybe 30 years plus mbadde mu business ya Uganda. The unfortunate part nti abasuubuzi ba Uganda tebayina muscle egamba nti they can sustain something, at least with my experience, what I have seen. Why? Abasinga obungi kubo si basuubuzi. They are middlemen. If what would read abasuubuzi that businessmen, but largely they are really middlemen according to me. Or brokers. Then ekyo nekibaleetera okubeera nga they are survivors. Very few abalina a very strong line of business. Never going to JSBAco. So today, what did we see? We have seen emergence of also many groups. Really, activities zino zabeerangawo nnyo nga ziri mu kasiita. Naye kakati waliwo very many groups, and these groups is a sign of weakness to me. Eventually, is a sign of weakness because buli aba feeling nti ono nga bano nga balinga batatwogerera nga bakola akaabwe, and therefore in a country where divide and rule is very key, kireetera oli gwe mwagala okulaga dissatisfaction yammwe, ability to neutralize you. Era njagala olabe something failing gwe kyolaba nti method yaabwe egenze batuuse ne president ba leaders abasisinkanye tebasotinze clear out the issue, naye nze nga nabaalinga postponinze abayinga time. Then n'abayita bonna. Now from a meeting to a rally, what can you discuss in a rally?
Yes, but the rally je baba isemo gende kororo abataso kugenda mu State House.
Abajagere kati ekyo that is a trick to me. Yes, it is a trap somehow. Kubanga even n'abenkaaga ababadde mu gundi, they cannot discuss issues ezikwatagana na bino ebintu ebiri technical, zeetaaga abantu batono abalina knowledge kuyo ne bagamba ki. Then the reaction ey'abasuubuzi nga babaleetedde amawulire, at least erabyeko something that has gone viral. Chairman wa Kampala Central, oba mayor wa Kampala Central, Uhuru, Salim Uhuru, they are reporting them ne celebrations ze baakoze not because bajjeewo emisolo or not because emisolo bagikendezeza n'okubagamba obugambi ebigambo bibiri nti somehow basuspendinzeemu ekyokubiri penalties nazo tebamaze gazijjawo kuba yagaye nti tuna ebigambo bya president bigamba pending further discussion. Era mbigambemu omuyamuganye n'agamba nti ye kennyini yagambye nti saayagadde kunkubirayo kumukwatirayo kubanga nikiraga nti he is now preparing for them. I have ever participated mu strike ey'okugala amaduuka mu time when VAT was first introduced in 1998. Era ne tugenda ne discussing. Unfortunately, nti abamu ba leaders bano boolaba abakulembedde ttiimu zino, they are strategizing themselves for positions, for recognition, for political appointments. Abamu boolaba abo. It occurred then, I have evidence, then abaali ba leader baamukula baani twagenda okubivaamu nga babasembeza kumpi n'emmeeza. That is where the dilemma is. Naye all said and done is nti abantu abamu basigadde waka abalala ne babeera nga batudde ku mbalaza zaabwe n'olaba nga waliwo nga holt naye holt eyo for the 4-5 days wano bakisobola ne when you go beyond a week buli omu ng'aga nti nze naali awa. That's where the biggest challenge is. Era nze bw'ombuuza nti when such a things emerge mu mutima mbyagala ndi muwagizi waabyo naye mu nkola sikkiriziganya n'abantu ba wano bangi kubanga tebalina mugongo. Ekyokubiri boddayo n'otunuulira, what are we protesting? Tetuprotestinga tulinga bataprotestinga musolo tuprotestinga system.
FRIS.
Era abantu bangi balowooza nti ifris musolo. Era bwe baleesa awo ababimanyiimu ne batandika okubannyonnyola balinga ababalaganaga nti after all gwe vaati omuwa nga ogula wali obalaho oluseera era supplyinga oba ku factory. Kati ate bw'ogenda okutunda wo n'omurikavaringa. Okiwulidde n'omurikavaringa. Chain negenda ng'etambula like that. But what I think me as a person, nti system eyo si nyangu eri people who are not illiterate, but not technically exposed to tuyita tutya omulembe gwe tuli muguyita mutya
omulembe guli digital.
Yes, digital thing. Kubanga, you see, that's where the biggest challenge is.
Now, Imam, is there a person who went to the shops to buy something and failed to buy it because the shop was closed? Because I think that's where now impact comes in.
It was largely abamu baali baagala kusigala nga bakola naye ne batya bannaabwe. Naye mu suburbs zonna zasigala zikola. Ziyinza obeera maybe short supply could have come in naye zasigala zikola because nja kugamba nti bwe navanga mu Kampala gye nasanga nga bagaddewo naye nga okuva ensambi okutuuka eno ewange gye nsula saalabayo dduuka liggale. And that is
even supermarkets.
Yes, that is a big implication. That is a big implication. After all, those supermarkets, what them so gwe bogerako bagumanyiira dda. Kwa bamanyisi gwabwe receipt ezo ze boogera ze batuwa bulijjo.
Yes, passing on to the final question.
But the problem is nti omusuubuzi yabadde protestinga for who? Ffe be yali protestinga ffe abagulako ebintu abamu tetwamutegedde. That's where we wali crux of the matter.
Right.
Until
yes.
Lastly, protest entuufu yali badde ki? Not against the tax, not against its system, but against nti bwe tumala okuguwaayo, what returns do we get? What benefits do we get? Do we have a school in the neighborhood, a public school, where I can take my child nasomanga sirina bizibu? Do I have, if I rushed into a health center 2 or 3 or 4, will I get that treatment that I need because of my taxes I have paid? 3, is the road I am using fine? 4, in my area, Wendy, nina security lights, nina, the method of collecting refuse from there, is it really, is it what it should be? When it rains, gana amazzi agadduka, ne gaddukira on ne gakalinga, every dart nebeera spread everywhere, including mu miryango gy'amaduuka agaffe. Is it the one we are, if we are protesting for that, it would make a lot of sense. But yet tukikolera ku baani, these adamant people, will they accept? That's what I can say for the meantime. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Imam Kasozi. And at which point now, probably as we talk about service provision, it's often really the role of Parliament to even go and inspect the application or the use of government money. First of all, to approve the budgets, to approve the taxes that are imposed, but also then to see whether these particular services that Imam has been talking about or has mentioned, waste collection, schools, roads, hospitals, and so on, are in place. Honorable Mwadam Kunyinji is with us, and if you've just joined us, the program is Come Let's Talk with me, Kassim Kayira, 48 minutes past 8 o'clock, and we are talking about the tax system, the traders' protest in Uganda, and what it has actually taught us. Have we learned any lessons? Could it be the new way to protest a government, probably to get government's attention? And also importantly, is there a way of getting rid or maybe reducing these taxes? Because, well, the crux of the matter might be the taxation probably is too high. The process itself is very complicated. The machine that you have to have, buying it for yourself and installing it, ensuring it is on and powered 24/7 when electricity does not guarantee its presence for 24 hours, making sure that you register. If you miss any registration, you could pay up to 6 million shillings. Honorable Mwadam Kunyinji, why don't we hear? Because this idea ended up in Parliament and it was part of the big debate. Honorable, Salaam alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Imam Kasozi atuwaddemu ekifaananyi ekyabadde mu mitala. Well, you are an MP representing an area within Kampala and Chandodo East. So first of all, area, what was the impact of this in Parliament? Abantu bewo balina bwe bakoseddwa okuggalawo kw'amaduuka kano okwekalakaasa ku kkubo.
I think Imam Kasozi ndowooza atugayirize tugende mu Luganda.
You can mix because you know ours is an audience that is mixed. Yes, Luganda lusobola okutambula
mixture. Kakati, I think Imam awadde a general perspective or more political perspective. I would quickly say, in nsanyusa okuba nammwe this evening. And indeed, I was part of the first engagement at Parliament with the traders, because these traders had sought audience with the various stakeholders, including parliamentary leadership, political leadership in this country, and from their own testimony, when we met them, they claimed that all offices where they knocked actually had ignored their concerns. It's until now the leadership of the opposition in Parliament of Uganda, led by the Right Honorable Joel Senyonyi, confirmed and accepted to meet them, that all other stakeholders found it tricky that they were going to interact with the opposition before they interact with them. Actually, at the scheduled meeting with the leader of opposition, the chairman, Kasita, had on last minute sent in an apology and narrated that he had been cautioned, he had received a lot of strange and threatening calls, telling him and instructing him to call off his meeting with the leader of opposition.
Yes.
And we had to send in our own delegation as opposition, including members of parliament, to give protection to the chairman, Kasita, from the gate of parliament. You know, because we had waited for him, a meeting that was scheduled to start at 8 ended up starting towards midday. We had to even to give him protection from the gate of parliament and comfort for him to enter, and he actually came in last. He came in last when the other traders and other representatives of the other trading groups had actually already appeared. They were present as early as 8. So it is true that the voices were amplified by the various trade community. Some engaged in garments, some engaged in hardware, some in produce. We learned that they are organized under solid umbrellas. Now we have parallel organizations under Kasita. Now those trading dealing in garments have a president and a leadership and a full executive. Those trading and dealing in hardware also have a leadership. From a leadership, so the various categories have various groups. What I want to quickly arrest and put on record is that when you look at the tax regime and tax collection in this country, here I want to deviate slightly from Imam Kasozi. When you look at the block nature of tax regime and tax collection, and even tax compliance and implementation, it is more strategic and more accurate in the central business district. So when it comes to Uganda, most of these other shop owners are not even registered taxpayers. They transact in their own way. When you look at equal tax enforcement in other districts, because when you move to the sides of Munyonyo, where Imam Kasozi resides, you are almost in Wachiso. Most of those parts are in Wachiso. Now, the central business district is largely in the city center and in the city, because this is where most of the supply and most of the bulk trade occurs and transpire. When you go outside the Kampala and outside business centers, most of the other centers, logically, they don't pay, and they don't comply to tax. They don't have that tax compliance as in the city center, because in the district, this is the first track from licensing to tax registration. But when it comes to the outskirts, they normally acquire licenses. There's more enforcement on licenses than taxes. Yes. So that's why even the arguments being raised by the traders, truly, people were concerned that the traders have concerns, but it's also true that the wider public have not understood what were the actual concerns of these traders.
So what were the concerns then, Honorable? What were the concerns? And just before you answer that, probably, let me say to those in the meeting, please, in case you want to ask any question, you can either raise your hand the Zoom way, or you can type the question in the chat room and we'll get it to our guests to be able to discuss it, because this is our public forum. Remember, this is your global community conversation where everyone's expertise is quite welcome. So what were these concerns then, Honorable?
Yeah, so it's very interesting that and it's not only for you in the diaspora. There are also many in Uganda who never understood what were the actual concerns of these traders. But they only understood one thing, that the traders have concerns, they have to do with taxes, and that's why there's out of a narrative of influence. And
that very word, Honorable, for me even sounded very vulgar. I was helping myself I was struggling too hard, maybe, but it just felt so vulgar from the word itself. Using the word itself sounded so big. So what was really the issue?
Yeah, so because Ifris took the test of the day, but he had a list of other concerns. But even Ifris was not understood by the wider public, because some call it the tax, some call it the results of the tax. So probably in this program, I wanted also to expound on now the dynamics of the entire public of their concern. One, so mubufunze nze njoga byogera mu luzungu nti abafuzi bali bamiddwa audience abantu abalala bonna paka akulembera olubuga government mu parliament yakkiriza basisinkana naye okubasisinkana yaba appointment ya sawa 2 nezange tuuka sawa 5 tuwuliziganya na chairman wa Kasiita n'akutegeeza nti mutufa amasimu gaafuna n'ebiragiro bimutisizera bamugaana okumitinga akulira oluvuganya government, but eventually yaguma era yayingirawo sawa nga zigera mu midday twalina n'omuwa protection okuva ku gate okuyingira agume. Kakati naye twakizuula nti wawo groups mu basuubuzi kati abadiringa mu bya hardware bo balina obukulembeze bwabwe okuva ku president paka n'obukiiko bwabwe, abadiringa mu kutunda engoye n'ebyambalibwa nabo balina obukulembeze bwabwe mu kibuga, abatunda category ez'enjawulo ez'ebintu bye bali kati twesanga nti ebibiina kati biweza okusinga Kasiita naye nga bikkiriza nti bikolera wamu ne Kasiita. Ekyokubiri kyetwalaba mu nsonga zaabwe nti ne bannayuganda bangi tebategeera oba oliawo nsonga nzijuvu ez'abano abasuubuzi, era ekigambo influence ekyasinga okukwatayo akati naye abasuubuzi balina ensonga nkumuliitu ze bapulizentinga ne influence abamu nga bagamba bagwe musolo oba sigwe musolo nayo yafuuka nayo issue. Kakati ekyokusatu kyetwazuula era kyenyagadde nti kyenjawuseemu ne imaamu nti kituufu abantu abasinga okuwa omusolo n'okulondola kw'omusolo kw'amaanyi nnyo wano mu kibuga wakati, kubanga obusuubuzi obusinga we bukolebwa okusinga ebbali w'ekibuga, kubanga buli okuluma ekibuga ebitula ebimu kati nga katugambe nti imaamu agambe kuva gye yava ewaka otuna kati ebitundu nga Munyonyo ogenda omaliza ng'oli Wakiso abasinga wabweru wa Kampala bewandiisa ku misolo naye bafokasinga nnyo ku trade license oba license z'obusuubuzi. Ebimu ebisinga tebabigoberera kuba enforcement si y'amaanyi nnyo ebweru w'ebibuga, naye ate ebibuga wano emisolo gy'amaanyi nnyo. Flex ne delivery of delivery supervisingibwa okusinga ebweru, wetaaga license y'okudelivaringa ate nga ebitundu ebirala ebweru terina license yakola, terina alondola delivery. Kakati kwe kiva nti abamu mu kibuga bwe baggalawo osobola osanga ng'ebweru amaduuka agamu tegaggalwa, naye ate impact ennene yali wano ne mu kusoloza emisolo. Impact y'okugala ekibuga awali Central Business District y'amaanyi era URA eba egifiiringa ne gavumenti eba egikola ki eba egifiiringa. Kakati ekinyusi kya abaffe lwaki baggalawo kikino ekyo kikadoza kansooke ntandike ne kye bayita konsaani z'abasuubuzi. Konsaani z'abasuubuzi esooka abasuubuzi balina konsaani ku nkola kansooke nene enkola esinga okukwatayo giyite influence oba electronic fiscal receipting and invoice system, nti enkola eyetaagisa obuli musuubuzi okuba nti ekisooka aligestalinga ekampani oba edduuka lye oba ekitongole kye n'emisolo n'ekitongole kya URA n'azikonekitinga okuba nti bw'aba agaba lisiiti erina okulaga omusolo byatunze n'omusolo, ne waba agaba invoice ng'erina okulaga omusolo ogugiddwako n'ogusasuddwa. Kati ezo lisiiti ezo URA ezeekwata ne invoice n'egukubanja kubanga guba for transmission to URA. Kati mu system oba wamaze ogukola ki ogudikirayalinga. Jjukira enkola enkadde abasuubuzi badde basinga okukozesa gw'okola lisiiti yo eri konti Kayira Limited. Kati Kayira Limited oluusi gwewandiikamu ne peeni zibino ntunze zino zakuwandika na peeni bazitunda ku NASA bayiba mukasuza abo bazipulintinga nnyo mu kampani za printale. Kakati n'okwata peeni n'owandikamu ekikopo ky'otunze ssente ate zonna nga zizo. Kati ebyemisolo byo obibala luvannyuma oziwa audit oba accountant wo kati n'abala nti otunzewo ebiti webiti ati amagoba
it was self-assessment. It was self-assessment.
Kati URA erese system gye bata influence nti yo terinda luvannyuma terinda accountant yo otunze ekikopo kimu kya 15 laga kuliko omusolo gwa mmeka nti gwa 10 kakati bwe bajja okubala bo bakwata invoice ne receipt emisolo giva okwo tuno 10 mmeka zonna zina okukola ki kuba eva electronic yo omusolo buli
omusolo guno influence oyo. Do you have to pay it annually or do you pay it kubanga waliwo bibagwa obugwi ne babanja ne baagala obasasula kubanga wakufuna dda mu biwatu
kati kasooke mmaleyo kati pakati of course ekibuuzo bwe nkiddamu kiyinza okugira ddala ku mulamwa lwa nsonga nti abasuubuzi bano bennyini kubanga ate ku ludda olwamwe tax consultant ne abasuubuzi bo bennyini bwe baba beewandiisa ku misolo bo bennyini tebabimanyi kubanga mu sisitimu ya URA bw'oba weewandiisa ku musolo tulina be tuyita ba presumptive taxpayers kugamba gwe kennyini gwateebereza nti nsuubira kufuna bweziti mu period esasulwamu omusolo kati bo mu sisitimu ya URA bakwasa esingira okwo oba ozikoze oba tozikoze yosangayo biiru yo kubanga oba wazibikirayalinga
nange kyenewuunya nti URA empeereza omusolo wano gwesirina kye natunze ngenda okulanga bammanyi omwaka
eyo mistake abasuubuzi okuba tebakimanyi ogikola weewandiisa
tin number mu kuregisteringa tin number twagira baga nti wenda kyotajjuza nogenda mu category
bw'oba weewandiisa ku musolo wodikirayalinga bakubuza gwamba omugate gw'osuubira okufuna kati bw'oweewandiisa nga presumptive payer buli kyo kyekola bwekoze mu sisitimu bakubalira kuze wadikirayalinga kati ate mu sisitimu yaabwe bo declaration bakuteekako limit eri mu mateeka si gwe gyoyagala okuwaayo bw'oyinza obanga mu dduuka lyo osuubira ogatunda okola amagoba ga miliyoni emu ze miliyoni 10 ate wano mu kwewandiisa wekuba obayagala tiimi bo bakuwa minimum eri mu mateeka kati bo gye bakukanyuga kati gwolowooza okola ntono naye bakanyuga mu nnyingi kuba ze zaali mu sisitimu mwe wagwa mwe bakuteeka mu kategole
just to remind everyone listening into the conversation tonight, this is absolutely important for everyone in this conversation. You might not be in business, but right now you know that, for example, to purchase land in Uganda, you must have TIN number. That TIN number means you're going to register. You need to know which category you should fall in as you're registering for the TIN number. I'm sure many of you have TIN numbers. Please have a keen ear to this. You might think you are not in business in Kubo. This might come to haunt you. Honorable Sonyiwako, please go ahead, especially for registration point there where the category matters.
Naye nange sijja kuwa bingi ndekayo ebyekikugu bibadde mpangisa okusomesa. Kakati naye okuddirayo nti bweweewandiisa mu tax registration si occasion si mukolo mu tax registration weewandiisa kubanga oba olina okudikiralinga your competence oba qualification to pay a tax. Eyo yali ku level initial level kajjukira teri musuubuzi yabimanyi atuma butumi mugende mu mpandiise n'awayo kampani ne bamuwandiisa ekyo abitegera luvannyuma nti bimmanja kyekimulaba muntu awandiisa kampani ye n'agigalawo n'abiva nako ng'oba tetandise nakukola agerwa buli kasita bamuweereza receipt kuba mu tax registration n'okukulozinga is a process eyinza n'okutwalira omwaka to close for tax than okulozinga company kuba okulozinga company kyangu neba kulikwalira to close for tax process weeri emanyikiddwa mu mateeka okulozinga otya your tax liability kati abantu abasinga byane company nesigala nga yeebala kuba by presumptive registration buli mwezi ogugwako ebeekuwa biiru ate biiru weyita wano kisasudde nekuwa ne fine kati ebyo byamusolo kati ekyo mu registration wano nebasuubuzi nti ordinarily kyobolanga omuntu awo kati bwogenda for compliance purposes manya nti ate wano registerize guno omusolo gw'osasula naye in the nature of your trade waliwo ate boyinza okudiringa nabo ng'ate etteeka ligamba nti bo bakuggyako katugambe nga withholding tax balina okuggyako sente buli supply gye bakuwa kati ate URA tekuddiza mu kaashi the only return URA gyesobola okukuwa kwe ku offsetting omusolo gw'oboolera mu liability ne bakozesa ze baatwala edda by withholding naye nagambye bw'onootwalamu ekyo tugenda kwerabira bino byonna ebyabasuubuzi kakati naye kansooke ebyabasuubuzi binajjira mu bibuuzo kubanga ebiri nnyo mu tax registration. Kati okuzayo ku basuubuzi nti abasuubuzi bwe beewandiisa for taxes, kakati normal ordinarily baali bakola lisiiti zaabwe, ng'akola lisiiti n'abala byatunze omwezi n'awa accountant we n'amubalira nasasula omusolo. Kati ate ekyajjawo kati mweno system ya influence bayise influence. The influence yo yenyini si musolo, wabula enkola eyateekebwawo ey'okusasula omusolo, naye nga oba tocomplyinze nayo eyattractinga ekibonerezo oba ndoza yakisegere ero gye bayita electronic physical receipting and invoicing system eringa policy, kati nga ekwetaagisa okuba nti buli woba otunze ekintu buli wogaba invoice olina ogamba nti olina olaga omusolo gw'okyaginga ku eyo item gy'owaddeko invoice. Ekyokubiri buli wogaba receipt olina okulaga nti bwe mmeka ezizo n'ez'omusolo mmeka. Kati biba mu system, kati ne mu collection eri automatic mu system. Kati ne bagisekako ne fine nti bw'oba togikomplyinze nayo, kano ke kasinga okuba important, bw'oba tocomplyinze nayo, for example nti bw'otunda ekintu kyonna nga invoice yo tegoberedde tebadde electronic okulaga ezizo n'omusolo, oba okugaba invoice for example bw'otakozesa influence oba system eyokozesa digital system oba e-system, ne baga nti buli mwezi ogenda kubanga osasula fine ya $8,000,000 buli mwezi. Ate singa olemererwa okugaba risiiti oba invoice eri electronic, buli mwezi ogenda sasula $6,600,000. Awo tutute mu details ekwava ekinyusi ky'abasuubuzi. Kati eyo ze fine eziba ezakwinga ku muntu nga takozeseza electronic system. Kati abasuubuzi mukosi mu Luganda olwabwe bagamba omusolo ogwa influence, naye by the language of the law eri nti bateekawo system eyo ng'eri electronic nga one bw'otagikozesa eriko fine oba penalty ya $8,000,000 buli mwezi. Ekyokubiri nga bw'otagaba risiiti wadde ogikozesezza ne bw'owa eyewandiisa naye n'agaba risiiti ng'eri manual ng'ezira eza bulijjo ez'edda zezandasa bateekako namba. Kati ate bw'otakola ki, bw'otagaba eyo oba invoice ate kuliko fine ya $6,600,000. Kakati ekyokusatu wansi wa system eno ya influence electronic nga bwe weesanga ng'olina liability ey'emisolo ku bintu by'olina okusasula, kakati nga oba oliawo ne services, naye ng'ebyo bisinga liability yabyo ng'esinga ekibonerezo kye wandiweereddwa olw'obutakozesa influence system. Kati bokamanga penalty gy'olina okusasula erina kuba yenkanankana n'omusolo gwo. Kati nga weesanga nga penalty ebadde ntono ku musolo, bagamba penalty erina kwenkana naki n'omusolo. Kino kyavaamu nti buli gwe baasanganga nga abadde mu non-compliance nga bamuwa omusolo mulala. Era kyobula abasuubuzi baba bakuwa example nti kati nga olaba supermarket ezimu nga bagisanga ne bagamba nti mwezi gumu tukubanja $8,800, $8,200. Kati nga buli omu bamubanjazize kubanga baali bakozesa eno window egamba nti weesanga nga your tax liability exceedinga your minimum penalty, bakwata penalty nga baga nti penalty yenkanankana ne tax liability oba otegede. Kati singa omusolo gwe weesanga ku bintu by'obadde olina okusasula nga gwa $5,000,000, omusolo nga gwa $5,000,000, katugabe nga gwa $10,000,000, kyokka nga penalty gy'olina okusasula yandibadde $6,000,000. Kati omusolo ne tax liability ne penalty zonna za $10,000,000, olwo ng'ogeze $2,000,000. Kati bali na nkola eri clear gye bafollowinga.
Honorable Muwada, actually it's perfect. I think there is already a question which would relate to that of Sulaiman, please go ahead. You have a question for Honorable. What do you start the chat room, but I'd rather you ask him because I'd like to have a conversation. Sulaiman, go ahead, please. Sulaiman, assalamu alaikum. ayinza okuba nga ali ku mulimu. He says, Honorable, don't you think that there are more than double taxation? Already,
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Sulaiman, mbaye ndabyo oluddeyo ne ndowooza nti oyinza okuba nga oli era.
Nsonyiwa mbadde manyi nti unmute nze.
So please
Sheikh,
Honorable.
Sheikh, kisooka weebale nnyo Sheikh organizinga gonti eno. Atoyanzege
osinzidde ludda wa ssebo?
Ssebo nsinzidde wano Bungereza, London, Mitcham, Pollard's Hill. Ssebo Honorable, nkunyonyi nsanyuse nnyo okulaba nga ojja okwadressinga some of the issues. Tweyanze nnyo tweyanzege. Ogenda ku point, questions zange zibadde nga bbiri. Esooka okusinziira nga situation ngayo eriwo nga n'abantu tebannakuraising such issues. Mmwe nga ba MPs temwakiraba mbu nno amateeka ge mwayisa gali unfair. Amateeka ago ndaba taxation eyo already tugambe for products nga eziri produce, if we take like nga bamukwano baba n'aba cement, ogenda okwesanga nga already baba basasudde dda omusolo kw'ebyo ebintu bya producinze. Ebintu bigenda okutuuka ogenda mu kikuubo nga babisasuddeko omusolo. Kati ate mu kikuubo situation eba erina kukyuka bukyusi naye nga omusolo bagubala according to the companies oba nga edduuka lyonna turnover lye liba likoze, si ku buli kintu. Kati buli bw'okwata ekintu kye batunze mu kikuubo, omundenna anti wange ate agenda n'asuubula mu kikuubo n'akwata ebintu n'abitwala ekansanga. Kati n'ekansanga buli baddamu n'atunda ate ne bakitakisinga. So ogenda okulaba nga it's more of triple oba double taxation oba many times. Kati n'owekansanga waliwo ojja kusanga waliwo omuntu ali deep agenda n'amugulako naye n'akola ki? N'atunda mu kaduka katono naye ajja kuba ayi tax on the same issue. Bwe tuba tubazenga ekintu kati ekitono nga sukaali, buli bwagenda kwama mmwe etteeka lye mwakola eyo temulaba muno first of all lita business. Ekyokubiri liri unfair ku bantu bennyini abatradinga, kyekyo kimu. Ekyokubiri, lwaki mulinda abasuubuzi b'abantu ne beekalakaasa oba banoonye pulezidenti ng'amateeka mwe mugabaga nga musobola okukidisikasinga ne mukyusa n'etteeka eryo? Kyetaagisa ki okulaba ng'etteeka ekyo nga likyuse ne likendeezebwa oba ne mutuula ne gavumenti ne mulaba nga musobola okuteekawo percentage esobola okulaba nga ensi egenda mu maaso ng'ensi omusolo gwe bafunye, then ne ba traders ne bagenda mu maaso. Yebo for now.
Barakallahu fikum. Thank you very much. Yes, Honorable.
Maybe Haji, jasooka nsabe maleyo buno obutubula kikanga 5 kubanga ebibuzo bi-cross cutting. Maybe ate n'ababuuza bakitegeere nti tewampisenga gavumenti. Gavumenti kakati ffe
okyali MP, oli MP, oli responsible for people you are.
Ekyokusatu, lwaki tibadde nsooke mmaleyo nti enenkola gye bayita enenkola si tteeka nti lyayisibwa Parliament. Parliament yayisa etteeka ddala zino policy eziteekebwawo the user departments kaza Ministry of Finance ne URA system zaabwe ze bakola ki ze bateekawo in tax collection. Etteeka lyogera ku taxes and tax collection. Kati nzo system of tax collection ze bakozesa wansi tojja zisanga muki, tojja zisanga mu tteeka. Kugamba enjawulo abantu bagikole ki bajawulo. Bino Parliament si yayisa influence, yeyisa liability emisolo. Kati bano enkola of collection, policies zaabwe za collection zesiza okuvaamu kalumanywera ono. Kyobula banga nabo bennyini zikyabalebya okutegeera. That's why meeting nabo wadde oyanjula tebadde kutuuka ku conclusion, bakyalemeddwa okutegeera kubanga nga bwe nkunnyonnyola wano nkugirayo kati ekinyusi behind the scene. Ekyokubiri nti bw'otunuulira kati mbadde nkulaga influence yokka kuba concern z'abasuubuzi zaali zisukka ku influence. Mbadde njikulaga mu broader sense ebadde mentioned. Kati bye biri munda inside influence. Kati omusuubuzi ye kyategeeramu nti wansi wa IFRS bankyajinga $8,860 ne wana ebintu oluusi bwaba liability esinga ntono enene ku musolo nga bakwata omusolo ogwa waggulu nga bagufuna liability kati ne watabaawo standard system kati wansi w'ebyo byonna ebyo bikolebwa babasuubuzi kye bayita IFRS ne bakiyita omusolo gwa IFRS byebyo ebiri munda byebadde kwani parkingira kubanga bo babitegeeza the impact kati yali concern emu concern z'abasuubuzi concern eyokubiri yali ya VAT value added tax kubanga concern zaali zanjawulo nga baga nti ekisooka abasuubuzi bagamba nti mu Uganda for now omuntu okwalifying okufuna okuba nti alina okusasula VAT alina kuba batunulira oba ekomo oba threshold ya wakati ya $150,000 kati buli adeclaringa nti agenda kukola mu mwaka mu financial year ng'agenda kufuna sente ziyite amagoba mu business volume etuuka mu $150,000 omwaka kati awozibisa mu financial year nti oyo alina okusasula kye bayita ki VAT oba value added tax kati abasuubuzi nga bagamba zino ziri wansi nnyo nti n'omuntu agenda otunda akatini n'omuntu omusuubuzi omutini yesanga bamulikwaliza okusasula VAT kati babasuubuzi bagamba ekifo ky'okuba nti ekomo liri mu $150,000 kuba baba $150,000 mu zona okola ate charges eza VAT ziri ku 18%. Kati abasuubuzi bagamba ekino ekikomo bakyongere waggulu ekyo kyetaaga policy ekikomo bakyongere waggulu from 150 million kibeere 1 billion kati concern y'abasuubuzi ey'okubiri nti bazincreasing so that nti omuntu okwalifying osasula VAT abeere nga tisi abali bamana tradinga ku volume ya billion eya shilling okuva mu $150,000 ekyokubiri nga bagamba ne amount ezisalibwako zisibwe to 16% okuva ku 18% kubanga mu region ya East Africa amawanga agasinga gali wakati wa 15 ne 16 kati baga ne Uganda ekebere mu range ya amawanga amalala gali mu East Africa eya 16% ze basaho for VAT zone sasula for VAT oba value added tax ekyokulala ne sente salibwako zambusibwe zibenga okutandika okusasula VAT olina kubamu 1 billion okudda waggulu eyo nayo concern endala VAT gwe musolo omukweke gwe balina okukyajinga nabo endala concern y'abasuubuzi zitegadde okwilatinga kuba tezaali nnyingi nnyo nezaali za nkizo endala concern y'abasuubuzi bano abatunda garments n'engoye ne fabric kati nga bagamba wait a minute nti omusolo gwe batusasuza bagusasuza mu kiro kati mu system eriwo basasuza buli kilogulamu eya fabric oba garments basasuza wakati wa $3 kitundu oba 35% nga 35% okusinzira ku kisinga okubeera waggulu whichever is higher tewaliwo standard sasula emu bili oba 3 bala bagamba 3%, 3.5 or 35% whichever is higher kati weesanga 3% eya kilozo ntonoko ku 35% nga bakusaginga 35% kati nekiba nti guno omusolo gwa kilo ekyokubiri banonyamu sente zisinga waggulu teziri standard kati boga bagamba nti nze nja boga bagamba ebyamaguzi balina olulimi lwe bakozesa nga lwabwe ensawo yange ey'amaguzi eyinza obamu engatto enfu n'engatto ennamu esobola obamu engoye ennamu n'engatto ezisalinamu esobola okubamu engoye empya oba oyinza obamu engoye enkadde second hand used bo nga bagamba nti ate gwe otukumira mu kiro ow'empya ayitawo asasudde ze ezimu nange ow'enkadde kyokka mu kutunda ow'empya jjafuna nnyo nze njafuna katono bagamba nedda aga ekyokubiri gwe tofuddeyo nti oba kyopumye mu kiro ezo nannamu munda oba ezimu nfu bagamba no ekyo kibalemeseza obusuubuzi kubanga beesanga ng'asasula omusolo ku bintu nga babimye mu kiro agenda obitunda bambi nga tebivaamu ssente ezo nga yakoze loosi oba kigenda bagoba mu busuubuzi so nze I wanted to start by highlighting concerns zaabwe ngayo baazituwa
Honorable, actually on the concerns, I think that's where now Parliament, there is a question that Sulaiman's question was buried. was valid. How does Parliament come in, especially in that threshold area VAT to go to 1 billion or 1 billion, but also the implications of that given our tax base that is so small. So that is one to definitely look at. Which are if we see a nyini, is it not double taxation considering at the source taxes have been paid as well? I think Clayman's questions are still valid in that sense.
Kakati nze mali concern zaabwe kati biri kuba abantu tebazitegeera nze ngaziyiza concern zaabwe esembayo biri, then the role of parliament and the role of government eyo nayo nkulu nnyo. Kati bo the second last concern yali yaba manufacturers. Omanyi amakampani mangi agakola ebintu wano mu Uganda nga fabric, bano abakola plastics, abakola biki, ekyokubiri n'abajja ebweru nga bagwira. Kale bagamba abagwira bano ne bano ba manufacturers ali nabo batandise okuvendinga ebintu byabwe mu street, kati ate bavuganya n'abasuubuzi, kati ate bebagulako, kati obanga babagoba mu trade. Kati eyo nayo yali issue. Then ekyasembayo yali valuation guidelines. Nti yo ala etalina system eri clear kwe bavaluingira bintu ebyaba importers abebweru. So nga bagala bibere consistent with the World Trade Organization. Oba se ekyo yo ala eveyo ne guidelines kwekola ki kwechargingira bana abasuubuzi. Kati so those are the basic concerns. Of course, in the summary, they were contesting, and they are contesting, charging those trading in fabric and garments. They are being charged $3 per kilogram of such commodities, or 3.5 or 35%, whichever is higher. So they are saying there is no regard of those importing new and old, and sometimes the packaging includes spoiled items. So there's no consideration to that, and no waiver as for spoiled items. And they are saying it makes them pay a higher tax than actually what they realize from trade. Equally, the threshold for VAT, they're arguing that should be increased from the liability should be increased from 150 million to at least 1 billion, and liability reduced from 18% to 16%. And of course, they also complaining about manufacturers who are also engaging in vending, whereas also traders buy from the same manufacturers. And lastly, and more important, it was to do with IFRIS. And IFRIS requires every trader to register for the e-receipting and e-invoicing. And also, for every item you sell, you must disclose what is your profit and what tax has been charged on that particular item. And there's a fine for non-compliance to use IFRIS of 8 million per month. Equally, when you don't issue e-receipt and e-invoice, they charge you, there's a penalty of 6 million. Now, these charges and penalties arising from failure to comply with IFRIS is what traders highlight as IFRIS tax. But as well, I also highlighted the concern that at tax discretion in Uganda, there are two forms of tax liability. Though some people pay after an accounting period, and some pay by presumption. They estimate what you will earn, and that is at the stage of registering with URA. Indeed, part of the challenge is tax registration and tax awareness. Now, of course, when it comes to IFRIS, that is a policy not passed by Parliament. It is within the tax policy, tax correction policy.
But can't Parliament intervene probably to speak to the ministry, because if the traders cannot get there, can't Parliament raise concerns with the ministry to say this is a particular concern that is standing out? Actually, mikono ndaba je yongera okuwanikibwa mikono nja kujja je muri nuwa nkuraba ne Soweto Masamba. Honorable, is it not an issue that Parliament can actually probably address, because you are the bridge between the traders and government?
Now, of course, as Parliament, that's why for us as opposition lawmakers, we were quick to allow a meeting with these traders, actually understand their concerns, and their concerns are really real issues. Of course, one, Parliament has to come in to harmonize the tax collection arrangement. Even when you look at most of their meetings as arranged with the Minister of Trade, Minister of Finance, and equally the direct meeting with the President, part when you look at most of their outcome, most of the outcome, they are saying they want to start the traders concern. We hear that there was a suspension of the penalties and also the correction of the forced correction of these penalties. But so far, they have not got a realistic solution to the matter. Of course, the Minister of Trade was claiming in their statement that that going forward they want to they want to come up with regulation that they're finalizing regulation to guide implementation on the competition or implementing the competition law. Then they are saying they have advised the KCCA and other stakeholders to comply with the Trade Licensing Act. That's to shield the traders from the manufacturers. But again, when it comes to VAT, issues to do with the VAT, that's where they have to come to Parliament for an amendment in terms of liability. The Minister of Finance is saying they have to consult the request for 2 weeks, according to their statement from their meeting with the traders. And two, they are talking about more sensitization, and as gas increase, they are talking about compiling those with the liabilities, with the possibility of a waiver. That was in the statement of the Minister of Finance to Parliament. What we had from their meeting with the President is saying that he only paused implementation of the penalty, according to what we hear, and came to consult, is going to consult URI and Finance Ministry within this week. But for us, for us as lawmakers, it is imperative, one, to capture, understand with the traders, because these are Ugandans. They are not saying they are refuting and refusing to pay tax. They are saying the arrangement of tax collection and tax compliance and tax liability, how it is assessed by URA, is wrong. So of course we have to review and probably going forward issue stricter and clearer regulations and laws that would tame URA from using any lacuna, any gaps within the law to price its mandate without regard to the people and traders' concerns, because they have been saying they are acting under the law, but the law doesn't talk about. The law wasn't so elaborate when it comes to this tax collection policy. The law talks about tax liability, but the collection and arrangement they are using is actually a policy from the Minister of Finance and
28 minutes past 9 o'clock in the United Kingdom. We are with Honorable Muada, who is an MP for Chadondo East, and also, Shadow Minister of Foreign Affairs, but also a tax consultant. I just got to know. I didn't know that. Interesting, and I'm sure he's given us, an insight. And the program is Come Let's Talk with me, Kassim Kayira. We are live on 75W Radio, live on Umma Connected, on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Zoom. Hasfaka Suja in the chat room says, Honorable Twale Mpora Tutegere, Oduka Speed Nyo. So Wendy Masaba, your hand was up first, and then I'll go to Noah.
Thank you, Brother Kassim, our host, and my brother Honorable Moada, for creating time. I know it's very late. At least it's very useful. This has been a very good discussion. At least it educates the people out there. Most of us, we are in the dark. We are just hearing in the press. But I just picked out a few things. On especially, I want my one question to drill around the IFLI system. The IFLI system, in my understanding, is the usual electronics system of invoicing or trading that we have all been accustomed to here, especially in Europe. It's been around for many years, and I'm sure in the region in East Africa, that system apparently was rolled out a few years ago. I first got to know about the IFLIS just after COVID, because I've got a friend who is running a supermarket in Mbale and an electronic shop. So when I went to visit him, I found that system installed, and there was a URA officer there sitting there trying to monitor things. And then he told me, this is what we are embracing as a business community. Now, the URA has argued that there's a business community already that is using FLIS, that they are saying they have already complied. the people in Chikubo have been keeping money. A lot of money is lying around, billions in Chikubo, which is untaxed, and yet they are competitors to these supermarkets. So supermarkets have closed because they cannot compete with people in Chikubo who are either undercutting the prices and knock them out of the business because they are not complying in terms of taxes. That has been the argument from the URA. Two, Honorable, I've been following the legislators in the House. When it comes to such contentious matters, the House is barely full. People are not there. You guys, where are you? Because when you look at it, some of them are only coming out right now. Maybe a few of you are the ones talking about these taxes. But legislators, when these laws are brought to Parliament in form of a bill, where are the members of Parliament to raise the alarm and say this thing is not going to be good for our people? Because at this time, we are only making noise when the thing is already past the stage of debate. It's already into law. We are attacking URA, who are just the enforcers. So where are the legislators, both NRM and opposition? We are talking about both NRM and opposition. They are not there when these things are brought to the House. So my concern is that, and finally, I know people who have lost business because had it been that they had IFLIS at that time, maybe Allah yamanyi bandi badenga business ziliwo kubanga amazima go galinti even ourselves that have run businesses singa twaina IFLIS osanga twani survive ne kubanga ekuyambo keeping records as a person nawe on your side when you avoid ngojeko nti you are nti abaku tracking na akufuna mangu naye now as a person nti you are in London, you are running a shop there, you can easily go to Uganda and find out how it is, how business is running. Now, unlike here, nti omuntu mu restaurant agula soda wabweru amwongera mu wano, okitegera seka Kassim kyenjogerako.
Yes.
So these are the things we are talking about. Yes, and also the 18% that we are talking about, the VAT that has been around since for the last 20 years in Uganda. I'm sure VAT has been more than 18%, and it is a tax that is transferable to the final consumer. Why is it that it is not us abali okwekalakasa? Us nze badde mbasa mugende abasuubuzi bagende mba consumers gye biba bitandikira. Let the consumers protest about the prices of goods and services.
But so when the Honorable did explain it very clearly, according to the traders, the 18% VAT, but there was some threshold. I think that's where the issue of the threshold from 150 million again to 1 billion, which of course I think is too much of a dream considering our tax base varying. It might be too exaggerated. It might be raised probably to 300 if one said, or 500, but 1 billion is a bit on the high. But yes, definitely noted. I think I'll get Honorable to respond to you. Can they tell no, because it seemed viewers were more of comments than I think Honorable will pick up on that. Let me first get it Noah so that we get Noah's question, and then we can answer the two.
Okay, thank you, Brother Kayira.
Yes, go ahead.
And the audience, this is a very good discussion. 3 points. One, regarding the penalties. You have seen, all of you on the London buses, London tubes, they say smoking on the buses is £1,000 or £3,000, right? So they always make it, compliance should be more expensive. The risk of non-compliance should be so high. Two, IFLIS is not a tax. It's an electronic system. All of us who've traveled to Uganda before, we used to pay visas upon arrival on cash. One of the best ways of fighting corruption is avoiding human-to-human transaction. Before, URA used to do validation, inspection, and those inspectors used to make a lot of money, right? But now there's no human-to-human interaction. That's one way of fighting corruption. And one of the reasons, I know the taxes are high, but one of the reasons why it's also alarming, some businesses have been collecting VAT, but not remitting it to URA. So they
Absolutely.
count that as part of their profit or supernormal profits. Whereas the likes of Game, ShopRite have closed because for them, they were on the system and they remit VAT. To our honorable politicians, there are two things I would like you to debate and think about. Uganda has 44 million people, but only 10% of Uganda's population pays tax. That's the burden for the entire. But then when you look at the size of the parliament, when you look at the size of the cabinet, that's the hemorrhage that you need to be talking about so that people can account for the little tax base we have. Given the noise we've made out here, Uganda is under a lot of sanctions. Donors are not paying that much anymore. Uganda is not hosting as many conferences as they used to do before for the hotels to make money, right? So we have to rely on the tax base. So, Honorable, I think as politicians, as the political arm, we need to debate on how we reduce the hemorrhage in the country. And also people could be accountable for and get value for the taxes they're paying. Sweden, Norway pay the highest taxes in the world, right? Almost 40, 55%. But because they get the services, they get their taxes, they get their health care. But we are paying too much, but no services. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nuh. That's very, very enlightening. I'll bring in Issa Makumbi now in the Okenzile Honorable because it looks like more of these are comments and no very fantastic presentation. So was Soed, who comes back in the chat room to say a penalty is a penalty. If you get a speeding ticket, it doesn't matter whether it is or Vitz or Range Rover. Yes, Haji Issa Makumbi, go ahead. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
I think this is a very good experience to the Ugandans. When they are voting, they vote the wrong people in too. Being bribed, they don't mind where they put, they cast their vote. Now it has come to roost. I really like this because it has waken up the Ugandans that you should be mindful whom you are putting in the power or who goes in the parliament. They've been blaming the opposition. The majority of those members are NRM. That one should straight go to NRM, who are very incompetent. When it comes to expenditure, they don't care. It's high time we start looking at the expenditures. We've got a big cabinet. How all those luxury that comes with that office, they are there to spend, but they don't mind how people are getting the money or where it's coming from. The job is spend, spend, spend. We've got so many RCCs, so many president advisors, so many military adventures going to Sudan, going to Somalia, going to Congo. All that is bringing up high expenditure. Now the government has just realized that they can't afford all such things. We should stop blaming that is due to the sanction. It is due to our incompetence, spending. Why should MPs be bribed with getting $500 million because of being a leader of opposition? We have such a people who are leading us, who have been put into those positions. They don't care about the public. You go to the infrastructure. If the main road having potholes everywhere, all those things, where do the money go? We are one of the countries that is highly taxed is Uganda. When it comes to service providing, nothing is available or nothing is given. So this has shown the incompetence of the NRM. Squarely.
Thank you very much, Engineer Makumbi. I'll bring in JP. Honorable Ndababona, it's comments, which I think you will respond to some of these, directly look at Parliament and performance actually in terms of passing some of these, but also inspecting some of these public services that, as Parliament. JP, go ahead. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you, brother?
Alhamdulillah, good to have you back.
Yes, we are venturing into very risky territory of politics, which we are kind of avoided for some time. But now that it's here, I think we need to voice our concerns.
No.
Now, I have one or two problems which I need to raise generally and particularly to the MP, because the way the tax burden has been rolled in the country is without consideration of how are people prepared, and what is their understanding of what tax actually means. Because we've always had tax, but how is it being collected? What is the system that has been put in place to collect that? Because some of those, I hear freeze or whatever is electronic, but what is the level of education that was rolled out before this system was put into place? And when you say tax to the ordinary person, when you talk about liabilities, when you talk about fines, when you talk about percentages, the ordinary person may not understand it. Because even when you see here in the UK, when they say we are collecting national insurance number, they try to simplify it in such a way that out of every pound, you're going to lose 2 pence. That's quite simple. But if you are telling somebody who is almost illiterate that you are going to charge them 15%, or you're going to charge them per kilo and you'll be taxed according to that, it might be too much for them. That is the one thing, the collection and the understanding of what tax is meant for. And then I'll agree with what Imam Kasozi said at the beginning. We collect the tax, but what do we see at the end of it? You know, the services that are being rolled out, the infrastructure, the education, the defense spending. Every nation spends on defense. We accept that. We have to protect our borders from invasion. We have to strategize. We have to manage the security within the country. You know, petty thieves and robbers and things like that. All that money comes out of the tax. But the understanding to some people, when you arrest a thief, for example, and you take them to the police station, you are again expected to shoulder the cost. Yes, to bribe the police officer to arrest somebody who has already done you harm, or to bribe the judge to give you justice. You know, the tax is meant to do that kind of thing. But if it is not there, then people become reluctant to part with their money. And the final thing is the outgoings, especially with the legislature. How much money goes out? Somebody used a very good phrase there, hemorrhaging. How much do we hemorrhage in terms of the number of MPs that we've got, the number of advisors that we have got? Do we really need that many MPs? And if we need all that, do we need them to be paid at that level which they're being paid for at the moment? Because what is wrong with going back to, for those of us who are old, if you remember the times of the Second Republic, we had 10 provinces, and each province had governors and, you know, a few number of people to represent the regions, you know, the traditional regions, Buganda, Lango. But now you find that in a place like Teso, for example, you've got Kabera Maido, you've got Soroti, you've got Arapai, you've got Amuri. All those little villages have now become districts, and each of them will need an MP. Do we really need that number of MPs? So those are the kind of things which the MP should address. But when they sit there and wait and posture, you know, the posturing is such that the opposition blames the sitting government and the sitting government blames the opposition, while at the same time they're lining their pockets with whatever is coming out. You know, it's not fair.
From both of them.
It's not really fair on the common person who is paying that what?
Yeah.
All
no,
that.
Tax has never been fair by any means. I mean, if we had a choice, I think we would avoid paying tax by any means.
But it makes it worse if you don't understand where that money is going to.
Absolutely. No, you are on the money, Bwana Jadid. Thank you very much. On the issue, though, of representation, I think I will beg to disagree, because sometimes there are, yes, political pressures on one hand, but also the population has grown. In the Second Republic, Uganda had about 12 million people. We are 45 million. That's almost 3 times the number at the moment. representation now has become even much more, because to get one person, that one MP, representing that particular area might not be adequate, especially if they have to address all these particular concerns from these areas. I think for me, the representation, yes, not to the 542 or 24 that we are in, almost big, getting to the size of the British Parliament with the economies that don't match. But representation now has become, even much more important. You look at hospitals, we used to travel 20 miles to get to the nearest hospital. With the district comes the hospital, and these facilities, although unfortunately again not facilitated, you still have a point that at least once it's there, you can shout about the lack of medicine which can come, but at least the facility is in place. So in terms of representation, personally, I feel like it is a worthy cause, but the number probably is the one that we should be probably.
No, but if you look at it from a different angle, because I'm not going to mention any names, but the number of times my MP has spoken in Parliament, I can count it on one hand.
Does he have what to say? And he has not been.
They have what to say. But they don't catch the speaker's eye because of the number of people, and apparently people buy to speak in Parliament. So the number of people restricts on the number of times that the MPs can speak.
Wow,
and
thank you very much.
The MP there can tell us. He's vocal, I know it's quite vocal, but there are those who have to wait and wait and wait before they speak. So what kind of representation is that?
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Jaden. I'll just bring Ramzi Kojo and then we go back to Honorable. A quick message in the chat room. Someone has disagreed with me. They say that is no. I disagree with the presentation. A teenage disabled girl from a military family has 4 MPs representing her. Oh yes, there is the woman MP, there is the military MP, there is a disability MP, MP for disabled people. Yes, I get. And then Ramsey is saying the FU system is the most effective in terms of accounting and collecting the correct sales taxes. Ramsey, go ahead, please.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And welcome to the conversation. Where are we listening to you from?
I'm in Maryland, United States.
Maryland, United States. Welcome to the conversation. Please go ahead.
Thank you. I want to send my salams to Honorable Mwada to meet Desebo.
He is here.
I want to thank him too for taking some time to explain about the current tax situation in Uganda. Though I'm not very convinced that he's doing his best. I know he's a tax consultant, but I feel him being very knowledgeable should be able to share those resources and information with the upcoming businesses. I know he mentioned at the beginning that most businesses now are paying more taxes based on the category in which they attain their TIN number. My concern is Uganda is a large country. It's a fast-growing community or a fast-growing nation with little or no information about the tax system. Members of parliament should take it upon themselves to educate their constituencies about the new tax system, and also have consultants like Mwada educate people on what kind of businesses to set up. Because if someone sets up a business that has the wrong category, you end up paying more taxes than you should.
Ramsey, I'm an example of that. I went and registered. I actually got someone who took me to a very tiny little office in a corridor and told me about registering one of the TIN number. I was meant to be buying a vehicle and I couldn't buy it without a TIN number. So I just go in the corridor, someone registers, even the details, all he asked me were my names and address, and the rest he did. He never consulted me about what was there. Next thing is I've been receiving tax reminders from URA, including a 5 million bill for things that I've not actually, for money I've not made. I don't know what that. So Honorable Mwada's submission was really a wake-up call, and I wished I had actually, taken the trouble to know.
Yeah. So, but for everything else, I guess everybody, Dr. Noah has commented about it. All I can ask the honorables, the members of parliament, anybody that's knowledgeable about the tax system should be able to educate others, so we do not fall into the same problem that you fell into.
So, but is that not the work of URA, the Uganda Revenue Authority, as a tax collecting agency?
They're not going to educate everybody. They bank on they bank on people's ignorance. Yeah. Because the more people are not knowledgeable about this, that's how they generate their revenue. You go in, obtain a TIN number, then pay taxes that you're not supposed to be paying in the first place. You end up with all these penalties that you can't even afford.
Yes.
But if we have our members of parliament who are our leaders educating us about different tax systems and also getting us the information we need before registering in a business, or maybe setting up a criteria for obtaining these 10 numbers, I'm sure that's something that Parliament can regulate.
Honorable Mwada, over to you now. I think Ramsey raises a very pertinent issue here. It's the work of the MPs, part of the work of the MPs now to go and educate people on taxes, because people are not aware. Actually, that was your own very first submission, that not only ordinary people, but even the traders, even some of the government officials don't even know what this tax is all about. Honorable.
Well, I want to thank you. I don't know if I'm audible now.
Yes, you're very audible. We can hear you loud and clear.
I want to start from the gentleman whose accent sounded from northern Uganda, possibly. He didn't disclose.
That's very American, Honorable. That's very American. That's Ramsey.
In terms of the Ugandan pressing, but he didn't disclose his member of parliament in Uganda. I wanted to cross-check the answers. Maybe his MP has been speaking, but on different topics, not specifically on tax. Actually, there are so many, Parliament sits regularly on different matters, and you can only tell whether your MP spoke or not using the answered record. But certainly, all MPs tend to speak on one topic or the other. I wanted just to give him assurance. But the MPs, we will normally task them in terms of their voting trends. Because yes, they speak, but what do they speak? Of course, most MPs from the ruling party are not user-friendly in terms of the people. So we have that concern. Sometimes they take very extreme positions, which we think if they had considered, and if they consider going forward the views and aspirations of the people, they would vote otherwise, especially on matters requiring voting. Specifically on IFRIS, first of all, majority of us, as we are in Parliament now, this Parliament has a number of new members of Parliament, including myself. Now, the tax we are talking about was passed in 2018, and they require, the e-receipting system and e-invoicing system, and specifically the introduction of IFRIS as an arrangement was done in 2018. That is a different Parliament, not this one. And it was introduced by way of amendment when they amended the Tax Procedures Amendment, Procedures Code Amendment Act 2018. Now, but it was amended in a different Parliament. That is in 2018, and that is another session. So we are dealing with what we have found in place, and has already commenced operation. So we are dealing with a system we found in place. I wouldn't put the blame on the current members of Parliament, especially those who never participated in the previous session of the previous Parliament. But however, our duty is going forward to listen to some of these concerns, and where it requires pushing for the relevant amendments, I'm very certain we shall push for the same. But I want to also be quick to comment. Most of the concerns were comments. I want to be quick to say that whereas I've heard voices from here making argument for tax payment and making argument for the e-receipting and e-invoicing system, I want you to understand it in terms of the Uganda's case. Now, when you're going to come to Uganda's case, for example, the traders, the kind of trade we have in most of the developed jurisdiction, they have realistic free trade zones. and also the open market. These are the open markets. Now, in the free trade zones, that's where the majority of the poor and simple traders utilize such opportunities. Now, when it comes to Uganda, we don't have a realistic free trade zone anywhere in this country. Now, the traders were saying, if this tax, for example, the VAT is charged at a factory level, and they pay at a factory level, equally, them as broke consumers, when they pay the tax at once as they are buying from the factory, they want it to be a conclusive tax. But what part of the challenge they are complaining about, for example, the VAT they pay and most of these charges, is that under the e-receipting system and double the influence, under the e-receipting system and e-invoicing system, even a mutembe, a person who picks items from your shop to deliver, is made also to require to have a receipt while paying and disseminating this item. And that's why a number of deliveries from the shops have been intersected by URA, requiring now another tax. They are saying there are so many stages of paying of the same tax. And at the end of the day, that the tax becomes more expensive than the item itself.
The item itself. No, but Honorable, now imagine a picture where Mutembe is by the traffic lights. Exactly. And they are expected to give you a receipt in that instance.
So they were saying that once someone justifies that a trader in Chikubo or in Kampala already paid this tax and bought from a manufacturer and paid this tax, now this Mutembe should not be charged, should not be required to give a receipt. And two, they are saying, how can we have realistic trade if in the market, a market vendor is required also to have a same receipt for the items? Because URA had gone and paraded themselves on the streets and they were arresting those delivering even a single item. They were arresting borders and others. This was one of the spark of this tax. So for you who is in a developed jurisdiction, please understand that in terms of Uganda, in those areas, they have those common markets with clear terms. They have free trade zones. Now, in terms of Uganda, we don't have them. We have people get the items from the shop, they go and try to get at one place. Now, they are also required to have a receipt of such items, which they cannot have, and it has blocked trade. And this is the argument the traders are making. It is a question of jurisdiction and levels of economy. I wanted to make a case for the traders, just in response of the comments I had, try to justify. When you look at, for example, IFRIS, it applies to, because it is mandatory for all VAT registered taxpayers. And that's why the traders, under the law, VAT, e-receipting and e-invoicing is mandatory for all VAT registered taxpayers. And we are saying that the limit and the requirement to be a VAT taxpayer was made so low that it is at 150 million. It is so low. And that's why they are saying, let the limit be increased to at least 1 billion. So that we can shield upcoming and small scale traders. So this is why they're also making a double argument, not only against the IFRIS, because the requirement to pay fine comes even to the small scale taxpayers. You find someone trading in a shop a shop with a capital of 20, 30 million. Now, with this kind of penalties payable per month of 80 million or 6 million, you find that in a few months, your tax liability is bigger than your business, meaning that they are being forced into closing business. Two, they are also making an argument for the receipts issued when the system is offline, because under the system you can issue receipts when the system is offline. Uganda has no stable network, and there is a requirement that you must upload them in 24 hours. In Uganda, you can wait for internet for a week. Even for you who have been trying to log in for tax registration 14, you can, that our system is not stable. But they are only given 24 hours. Outside 24 hours, you are a subject for a fine, for a penalty, and the penalty is so big. Now, it is equally problematic that when you issue receipts offline, you have to upload them, and many times they are caught offline. The other issue of concern, which I wanted to amplify for a better understanding why the traders have a better argument, they're talking about there's a concern to do with the the charges. Now there is the uncertainty as to whether the penalty applies per day or per invoice. Now you may find that different invoices are in different periods. But now what URA does, they may find that you have an invoice, maybe you have an invoice, a questionable invoice, or for example, of 1st June. Now they give you a penalty of 80 million. They find another invoice of 20th June. They give you another penalty of 8 billion. Now, when does it apply? And another will be charged a collective amount of all the penalties for a month. Now, there is uncertainty as to whether these penalties apply per invoice or per day. Now, just imagine if the liability, you have issues of different invoices which are being questioned and on different days. They will charge you 1 billion from nowhere in just a month or two. So these are the details the traders are trying to highlight. And in a developing economy like Uganda, where even online systems are new, even most of the government ministries and departments are just fast tracking online systems. We don't have stability of even network. The system that has an occasion penalties in such a punitive way of 8 to 6 million, and which multiply with a multiplier effect, is a danger to the trade community and will sabotage the entire fabric of trade and business. So much as we make, some have made argument for tax correction in comparison with developed regimes and countries, I'm trying to justify also the concerns of these traders in line with the realities on the ground in terms of Uganda as a jurisdiction. We are just developing.
Honorable, I hear you loud and clear, and I think it just puts everything into perspective for us. I'm just wondering, where do you see this ending? Because the government is desperate to collect money. It is clear without a shade of doubt that the wrong system has been used, the wrong method has been used. Is it something, one, that is reversible, that it can be, taken to how it can be done? But also, two, I'm wondering, if you look at it and the way you're explaining it, even to a lay person, this actually smacks or speaks straight to you that it is wrong. How comes they have not been able to realize this? I mean, this is an entire tax collecting body. The Ministry of Planning and Economic Development is a whole ministry with departments that will be looking into this. How did they miss this? Was that an error of omission or an error of commission? What do you think exactly happened? Because from this explanation, it is so straightforward. You'd have imagined that this would have come, would have come to light, a lot earlier than this. Why now?
Maybe Brother Kassim, I'll answer you with the statistics.
Yes.
Because the Uganda population, by estimate, is 45 million, and I heard recently they were talking about 49 million people. When you look at the URA records, the tally of taxpayers is at 3.5 million. Now I want to answer you by statistics in terms of the gravity of those affected vis-a-vis the wider population. That's why it requires the oppressive few to raise their concern to be heard. Many people in Uganda have TIN numbers, but they are not realistically taxpayers. They just say TIN and forget. Now, now, and others don't have even any interest in terms of TIN because people don't have land, don't have cars. People normally get TIN for their companies. Those are few people. Some get TIN numbers to register their cars, and some to buy land. But majority of Ugandans are tenants and value holders. Some are even in diaspora like you with no interest in Uganda. Now, when it comes to tax liability, these are 3.5 million people and million taxpayers, as opposed to the figure of 49 million, including the children, the young, and the housewives, among others, with no property to register. That would require them for such a tax. Two, when it comes to tax registration, just it is interlinked. Now, presumptive taxpayers, these are normally for small-scale taxpayers who pay presumptive tax. But the problem is, once you register for tax and you declare that you'll be earning this in this period, the URA system continue capturing you until it is grossed formally using formal channels. So the moment you register for tax, you have entered, there's no exit. The exit must be formal. So that's why you will find your liability there. They always send invoices, and their system is digital. It continues sending invoices per month, and when the invoices are not paid, then they also the penalties also start accumulating. I would challenge that even
Honorable, now here comes the question, Honorable. Here comes the question: is this reversible? Many people, and actually that's why I sent a message to one of the big forums, and I said, you might think this program is not for you. If you register the wrong PIN number or the wrong code within the number, you end up now being liable to tax. Is this reversible?
No.
Where you need to be paying that. Can I change that? For those who have business, what should they do now?
Brother Kassim, don't scare people.
I'm not scaring people.
When you register for a tax or for a TIN number, that is one step. No, that is one step called tax registration.
Yes.
Now, for tax liability, you must activate the number. Indeed, very many people registered but didn't activate. They're just using it for these other transactions. They are safe. When you activate it for tax registration, you must start filing what we call returns. So they will be sending requirement for returns. Now, your particular be of a person who activated it, and you are liable to file returns. Now, when you activate your number, even when you have not earned the income, the law requires that you file what we call returns. That will show your zero liability.
Yes.
File returns, presumptive registration. And so it comes, continue coming. If you have issues to do with the tax liability, the law creates a tax tribunal and a tax appeals tribunal where you can appeal a tax liable. Equally, when you are a big importer and your liability is so big, you don't have the money there, the law even has an option of applying for the tax to be deferred. When you are buying an imported item in Uganda, for example, one of the inquiries we make, what we call due diligence, is to establish whether the tax was paid. For example, a truck, for you a farmer, most of these big trucks, they don't, because the tax is so huge, these importers always apply for a deferred tax. The commissioner of tax registration has the power within the law to defer a tax on a taxpayer. So a number of items are imported into the country, they even put into use before the tax is paid, when the tax was deferred. So when you are buying it and so inland, you need to do due diligence by researching as to whether the tax is paid. That's why a car that was brought by a diplomat, when you are buying it, if it is 10 years old, you pay a bigger tax.
When you pay the tax, yes.
When the tax was not paid at the time of importation, it was waived. But when you are transferring from the diplomatic number plate to an ordinary one, or from an eligible number plate to one, you pay tax as if the vehicle is actually new, as if the item is new. Same applies to heavy machinery. Many of these wise traders apply for the tax to be deferred, and it's paid backward. So when you are buying it from inland, sometimes people buy with items and commodities with tax liability. But as I was trying to stretch the understanding of liability, and now those are already with the available, and these laws are already there. And equally, when you have a concern in terms of your liability, there is an appeal system within the system which you can explore. However, for this case, we are making a case for traders who are not saying that they don't want to pay tax. They are saying that the process must be actually they are saying they are willing to pay tax, but one, it should be reasonable, and the process of labeling and tabling fines should be equally reasonable, not to push them outside business. And saying that if there's a liability, let it be increased from 150 million to 1 billion, so that liability range tries to save low-income traders. And two, they also say that the collection process for this particular e-tax and the penalties be harmonized, and the requirement of the receipt also be regulated so that it has a limit. And that's why for them they were saying let it end at the manufacturer and business this importer at import level or purchase level by the wholesaler, but not transferring the same to an ordinary Muiribi, Muchembei, and these other transporters. So their case was to do with the enforcement mechanism.
All right. Honorable, they understood clearly. 11 minutes past 10 o'clock in UK. And the message here in the chat room says URA is cheating deliberately. And I was given a wrong code, and while paying for the imported goods, I was fined $250 to correct the mistake. URA is not the problem. Someone responds, it's the system which is complicated. There should be a simplified tax system. URA is just a collection medium. So Eddie Masawa says government hires consultants from the PwC, KPMG, among others, to advise to drop those tax policies. It is not reversible. BP says Uganda tries to mirror its tax regime on the developed world on the advice of PCW, PricewaterhouseCoopers, and KPMG and such consultants. Well, definitely, I think lessons there to take in terms of what we can take. The program is Come Let's Talk with me, Kassim Kayira. Thank you very much for a very informative program, I should say, Honorable Mwada, and for the explanation, for the breakdowns of, so where do we go from here then, Honorable? Looking at, there are the political dimensions, there are the legislative dimensions. Where do we go from here?
Well, for us as legislators, specifically from opposition, we are against these piecemeal solutions. For example, trying to centralize even enforcement matters one office of a president. It doesn't have some of those enabling powers where they are irregularity, because the law empowers these ministers of trade and URA, where there are irregularities like now as raised by the traders. We would have expected the Minister of Finance, Minister of Trade, and equally URA to quickly harmonize and adhere to the traders' concerns, because tax collection is not intended to deny Ugandans participation in business. And it must be collected for the good of Ugandans. If these are Ugandans who are complaining, then you must listen out to them and find a neutral right. Most of the demands of these traders are very legitimate and clear. And actually, majority of them are not educated, but at least in terms of the taxes, they are narrating what they go through. When they explain their concerns, you really appreciate that they understand their concern. And picking it from there, where it requires legislative input, like amendment, we are pushing Parliament to impress itself in this matter. But and unfortunately, when it comes to the amendment process, government has since put a blockade. Normally, as opposition, we would come up with what we call private members' bill. We would come up with an amendment bill to amend these irregularities. But government has since blocked the presentation of private members' bill. It requires a certificate of financial implication from Minister of Finance. It's not issue it to us as opposition. And equally, even when we demand for these amendments to come forward, they don't bring it. Recently, we have been pushing for the law on copyright. One of our members from the shadow cabinet had presented an amendment to do with the copyright law. That was Honorable Shiani. Unfortunately, government blocked it and said they have their own bill. Up to now, they have not presented their own bill. They blocked all the process of opposition bringing private members' bill. Now, this is the only window we had as opposition to bring the amendment. We would come and amend these laws and try to fine-tune them with the traders' concerns and with the realistic concerns. But unfortunately, it is the intention of this regime to supervise, to curtail all this input. And that's why you are seeing them dilly-dallying with the meetings, because these meetings cannot come up with legislative.
Oh, Honorable, your line, I think, is suddenly weakened, but it is 15 minutes.
Positions.
Oh, right.
Legislative positions must be as a matter of law. But as well, some of these, we find that the course and that interpretation of some of these provisions as implemented by is wrong, especially these computing penalties, and even some of these provisions are very ambiguous. As I mentioned, that the penalty applied per day, per receipt. What does it apply to? If I have 4 receipts in a month, am I charged per month for all the receipts or per receipt? Now, you find that the penalties are so huge and ambiguous from one trader to another. So some of this ambiguity can't be solved by mere meetings. Even when you waive it, you are waiving it for now, but it's also going to accumulate in less than a month. So we will be going back under this. We must put a hold to all this so that a clear outline on how it is implemented. Some of the traders' concerns require legislative amendment. But as we speak now, government has curtailed any room for the opposition to bring private members bill or a private member. We have to wait for them. So it calls for us to push the same regime and same government to amend where it requires, to bring amendment where it requires amendment. For us as legislators, we have the will to vote and to argue, to make a case for the traders in parliament, and we have even started it. I was present in parliament last week. I made a case for even those of you abroad and international passengers who get challenges and sabotage at Entebbe airport. I made a case on the floor parliament that even individual items, gifts are being confiscated at airport. There is no criteria on how someone can declare and comfortably possess a gift or a personal item. So many times they confiscate people's items, passengers at Entebbe airport. I also raised it. And the Minister of Finance committed to go and investigate and harmonize. But we know those were empty promises. We want realistic procedures. They must lay out procedures because people buy commodities, some from duty free, some from some personal items. But you know that under the tax law, we have those waivers when it comes to personal number of personal commodities, including even if it was salary. There are some items which are waived. The salary, a number of allowances are tax exempt. So if someone has some gifts, donation among others, a simple item are confiscated at Entebbe airport. There's no criteria, and people are made to pay a bigger tax more than even the cost of those commodities because there is no criteria. I raised it on the floor parliament, at least for those who are international travelers, who are regular travel. I couldn't forget that one. So indeed, in the parliament, we are there, and we are making a case for the traders. We are making a case
very much, Honorable. You've made a very, very strong case, Honorable.
Yes, that's the regime for the Uganda government.
Thank you very much, Honorable. And that's actually a message that comes from Aisha Masimbi, who says, thank you so much. It was such an informative and eye-opener to some of us. B. Kaima, I can see you there. You joined us probably to give you the last word before we actually call it a night. B. Kaima, are you there? O'clock. Quite an interesting, I should say, very, very informative. And I thank everybody who made time. Well, there's a lot. For me, part of the takeaway is a lot of times, sometimes we stand out and say, but nobody does it. I've noticed that there might be a way around that as long as you know how to be able to do it. As long as you know the procedures to follow, there might be registration of TIN numbers and finding the right code, very important. Finding your tax codes, critical. That's something that you shouldn't really look out. But I think there's also need, as raised in the meeting, about tax education. There's very serious need for tax education. I know there are programs on radio and TV sometimes, but you find the way they are structured is so abstract. It is just so hard for an ordinary person to sort of relate with. Maybe there is need now to sort of go out in the communities, provide this kind of tax knowledge that will help people to pay tax. A lot of times you'll find that people are willing to pay the taxes only if they knew what sort of taxes they are paying, so that they don't find themselves, in that kind of dilemma or difficult situation. I thank you very much. I was hoping that Kaima would be able to speak before we finish the program, but I thank everybody who has made the time. inshallah. Honorable, for your time as well. It's late, at past midnight, 20 minutes past midnight. Hajati must be waiting there, and apologies to her for keeping you this long in office. Thank you very much. Hope to see you next week for another beautiful program. The program was Come, Let's Talk with me, Kassim Kayira, and we were live on 75 W Radio, live on Ummah Connected, on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Zoom. And if you missed part of this program at this time, you can always catch up. Just go to YouTube, look for Ummah Connected, and just search for Come Let's Talk with Kassim Kayira, or go to facebook.com and just look for 75W Radio. Right there, you'll see Come Let's Talk with Kassim Kayira, and you can catch up with any of the programs that you might have missed. Hope to see you next week, Bi-idhnillah, Tuesday, same time, 8 p.m. Please don't miss another very exciting program in the offing, Bi-idhnillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for your time, and hope to see you there.